Christ is risen. There have been quite a number of you who have written recently to say that we are all running out of patience. We just can't take this anymore, this being locked inside, these restrictions of seeing our friends and just going about our normal lives. And this idea of patience and lack of patience, I'm running out of patience, I have no patience anymore, is so frequent that I thought it may be worth recording something about patience. The thing about patience, which is shared in fact by all other virtues, all things worthwhile, all the things it's worth fighting for, the thing about them is that initially they feel good for a while because they are gratifying. They make us feel that we are doing something right for a change. It's easy in the beginning to be patient. It's easy in the beginning to be forgiving, to be loving. But after a while, patience and love and forgiveness and everything that is good, everything that Christ teaches us to hold on to, becomes unbearably difficult. Things get gloomy and get dark. And I suppose this is where we are now. We are in the gloomy, dark period of patience. Patience in itself is essential for any sort of growth or evolution in the spiritual life. Because in the beginning, we don't really have any virtues. Nothing is real within ourselves. We can pretend to be loving, we can pretend to be patient, we can pretend to be forgiving, but these are not real life-giving virtues. They are make-believe virtues, pretend virtues. The only thing we have in these beginning years or beginning decades of our spiritual life is our will and the ability, the choice to use our will to exercise patience in practicing all the other virtues, even as they feel dead to us, even as they feel false and not having their source in ourselves. There is a direct connection between our patience and our beginnings, both our personal beginnings for each and every one of us, for myself and for you, our beginnings as human beings created in the image of the person of Christ. And there is also a connection between patience and our evolution, our becoming into our true self as humanity created in the image of God, the Holy Trinity. This link between our beginning and this dreadfully difficult virtue of patience goes back all the way to the beginning of our existence as humans. Patience is the beginning of a spiritual life, because impatience was the beginning of spiritual death. It is through impatience that death entered the world, and it is through patience that life is returned onto the world. Just think back to our forefather Adam. Adam's only fault was that he did not have the patience to slowly become who God wanted him to be. Adam's only mistake was to try to grab before the right time, before he was ready to receive it, what would have been properly his, had he only waited for the right time, which is known only to God alone. The devil only suggested to him what was properly his anyway. The devil suggested to him that he could become like God. But God had already created him in order for him, for all of us, to be like God. We were created in the image and the likeness of God. The only thing that the devil added to God's promise was another promise, that of a quick and easy, do-it-yourself sort of sanctification, instead of the slow, painful, yet salvific version of simply obeying to God's will and following God through that stage of just becoming oneself. This is why patience is so important. This is why exercising patience in a normal day-to-day sort of setting, like what we go through these months, is so important, because it exercises the muscle of our spiritual patience, so to say. If we manage to have patience in the here and the now, we could, by the grace of God, also have patience when the time comes for us to follow Christ. Remember that patience is linked with obedience, the same way that impatience is linked to disobedience. The impatience of Adam, the disobedience of Adam, have led us to where we are today. And in order for us to correct and to heal all the disastrous effects of that fall, we need to use exactly the opposite virtues. We need to have patience to heal Adam's impatience. We need to practice obedience to heal Adam's disobedience to God. I had to change my position a bit because the wind was quite strong where I was before. It is difficult to be patient, and I understand that. I find it very difficult. I find everything difficult, and don't get me wrong. I find absolutely everything difficult, but I'm aware that there is no other way forward. There is no other way into the kingdom except through the cross. Patience is difficult, but it protects us in this process of our becoming. It protects us in this process of letting go of our old selves and embracing our new real selves, the selves that are Christ-like. It protects us, patience, through this process when we cannot discern between the voice of the evil one and the voice of our own conscience, the voice of our true selves. We so frequently mistake the voice of the evil one as our true voice, of our internal voice, the voice of our hearts. And again, this is old news. There's nothing new about humanity. Think back once again to the beginning. Think back to Adam, how he mistook the advice, the voice of the evil one for the advice, the voice of his creator. How he was not able to discern between that seed of evilness that was planted in him and what he must have thought in the moment as being a good salvific idea. The same thing that happened to him happens to us as well. We listen to so many voices. We listen to so many incarnations of the evil one, and we are not able to discern which voice is the voice of Christ speaking in our hearts and which voice is the voice of the evil one. Patience will carry us through. Patience will keep us safe until we learn to discern, or even better put, until Christ gives us the grace of discernment. Think how Adam's life would have looked like. Think of how the life of the world, of humanity, would have looked like had Adam had the patience to just wait for Christ, for God, to lead him through his process of becoming. Because of his lack of patience, because of his lack of obedience, he was born before his time. He was born like a fetus into the world, instead of the man, the Christ-like man God wanted him to be. Patience is the only way, because patience changes us. Patience starts anew that process of transformation. Patience melts us. Like all good jewelry, we need to be melted so that we get rid of the old self, and then Christ can once again, because of our free will and our participation, can once again reshape us, start recreating us, so we can finalize that process which Adam cut short through his disobedience, through his lack of patience, which just threw him into the world like a fetus instead of a man. Patience is a spiritual cross. Once you are on it, you are caught in this state of tension. But a state of tension is precisely what we need in order to work our salvation. And again, this is a teaching which you find from the scripture, passed on through the holy apostles and the first bishops and the first teachers and the first fathers of the church, generation after generation, all the way down to our contemporary fathers. Think of Saint Sophrony of Essex and his teaching that once you find yourself in a state of tension, do not get out of there. Do not get yourself down from that cross, but keep yourself on that cross for as long as possible, because from that tension feeds your salvation. From that tension, your new, real self is being fed. Of course, all of this is painful. Of course it is painful, but then Christ never told us that salvation is easy. If you read what he tells us about salvation, all his teachings warn us that salvation is part of a narrow, difficult path. He who hates his life is the one who will save it. He who endures till the end, he who has patience and endures till the end will be saved. Christ has never told us that salvation is an instant, easy thing which you do once in your life as an event. You've done something, or you've said something, you've confessed something, you've signed a piece of paper, and all of a sudden you are saved. Salvation is a lifelong process, and it implies as its foundation patience through everything that life throws at you. Patience through the hell that sometimes overcomes our lives. But Christ has always shown us through his own example that beyond this darkness there is light, that beyond this cross of his and of ours there is the resurrection. Finally, I think it's about time to end this video. Finally, patience is important because patience is the one virtue that heals everything. Patience heals everything that's poisoned in our relationship with our neighbor and with ourselves. Patience can heal anger, patience can heal lust, can heal greed, and everything that separates us from loving ourselves and loving our neighbor. Patience is also able to heal the relationship between ourselves and God. Because, see, patience has this extraordinary ability to heal the things that are almost unhealable, and that includes disobedience, and it even includes pride, because there is a very clear, direct link between pride and impatience. There is this underlying idea behind impatience. There's this underlying hope that somehow we can get things done quicker and easier if we strike on our own. Behind Adam's lack of patience lies this basic human pride that we can get this thing done quicker and easier. Nothing worthwhile is easy and instantly achievable. Nothing that should have the energy, the spiritual energy to get us through that moment of death, to resurrect us decades or centuries or millennia after our death. Nothing of that intensity can be easy or instantly achievable. And yet, even to this day, all this time after Adam has fallen, we still believe that we can do things better by ourselves. We can get things done quicker and easier. We don't like the idea that one has to struggle, that one has to force oneself to do things that one doesn't like, to go through periods of one's life that don't feel right. We do not want to let go of ourselves and to trust God. We trust our feelings more than God. We trust our brains more than God. We trust our life experience more than God. If we were just patient and if we just held on to Christ's teaching, despite our feelings, despite our brains and our past experiences, if we only used patience, we would see sooner or later the fruit of true God-given grace in ourselves. The birds are getting very noisy. I think it's about time for me to get out of here. Let us try to keep ourselves in this state of tension. Let us try to keep ourselves on this spiritual cross, because behind the darkness of this cross lies the light and the life of the resurrection. And once we've gone through the cross and once we've gone through the resurrection, we shall see ourselves and each other, and we shall be able to recognize each other and embrace each other, not the way we embrace ourselves now in this fallen world, but the way we embrace someone who is part of who we are, someone who is more intimate than one's own brother, someone with whom you are linked in a way that goes beyond this world. We are one in Christ. We form that one humanity, which is Christ's true church, in the image of the Holy Trinity. Have patience, my dear beloved ones, and out of this patience, everything else will flourish. May God bless you, and through your prayers may we also be blessed at the monastery. Please remember to support us. Please remember to just throw us a bit of help through these difficult times. We are throwing your way all our love, all our prayers, everything that we have. Christ is risen.